All right, let's jump into Matthew 14. And wow, this chapter is a real study in contrasts. I mean, we're going to swing wildly from the total decadence of a royal court all the way out to a desolate hillside. We go from a pretty brutal execution to an absolutely breathtaking miracle. It's quite the ride.
So, here's the central question, right? How does a king's bloody banquet even connect to a miracle out in the desert? I mean, on the surface, they seem like they have nothing in common. But, as we're about to see, they are put side by side for a very specific reason. To get us thinking about two totally different kinds of power, two different kinds of authority.
Okay, first up, death at a king's party. And the story actually begins in the court of King Herod. What's interesting is we don't start with Jesus. No, we start in the court of this paranoid ruler. This is a world of political games, of fear, a place where how you look, your public image, is literally everything. And yeah, it sets a pretty dark tone right from the get-go. So King Herod starts hearing these reports about Jesus and all his miracles. And immediately, his guilty conscience just kicks into high gear. He's totally convinced that Jesus is actually John the Baptist, the man he had executed, risen from the dead to haunt him. This tells you everything, absolutely everything you need to know about his paranoid state of mind. So you're probably wondering, how did we even get here? Well, it all started when John the Baptist publicly called out Herod for his unlawful marriage. Now, Herod was afraid of what the people would think, so he just threw John in prison. But his wife, Herodias, she was holding a grudge. And she saw her chance for revenge at the king's big birthday bash, all thanks to a captivating dance and, a really foolish public promise from the king. I mean, just try to picture this scene. You've got this lavish banquet, it's full of nobles and important guests, and then this is the request. Give me here, on a platter, the head of John the Baptist. It is just a shocking public demand, and it's totally designed to back the king into a corner. And what's really interesting here is the text says Herod was distressed. He didn't actually want to do this, but his pride, that public oath he made in front of all his guests, it totally trapped him. See, for him, power was all about performance, and he was way more afraid of looking weak than he was of committing this horrible, horrible injustice. And then, bam, the chapter just pivots dramatically. Jesus hears the news about his cousin John, and he tries to get away, to find a solitary place, probably to grieve. But the crowds, they just follow him on foot. And this sets the stage for a completely, totally different kind of feast. And you really can't miss the contrast here. I mean, it couldn't be more stark. On one hand, you've got Herod's feast. It's exclusive, it's driven by pride, and it ends in death and grief. On the other hand, you've got Jesus' feast. It's out in a remote field, it's for thousands of regular people, it's motivated by compassion, and it ends with life and abundance. The chapter is basically holding up two totally opposing models of what it means to be a king.
So how does this miracle actually go down? Well, step one, the disciples see a huge problem, right? A logistical nightmare. A giant crowd, no food. Their solution is super practical. Hey, let's just send them away. But Jesus, he sees it totally differently. He takes the little bit they have, just 5 loaves and 2 fish. He gives thanks, and the result, it isn't just enough. It's this overflowing, mind-boggling abundance, with 12 full baskets of leftovers. And the scale of this thing is just staggering. The text says there were 5,000 men, but then it adds this really crucial detail, besides women and children. So think about that. The actual number of people fed was probably more like 10,000, maybe 15, maybe even 20,000 people. This was not a small get-together. This was a massive, massive crowd. But hold on, the drama is not over yet. After feeding a crowd the size of a small city, Jesus sends his disciples on ahead in a boat. And just as a storm starts to roll in, they find themselves facing a completely new kind of test. This time, it's not about resources, it's about faith.
So, there they are, in the middle of this storm, in the dead of night, and they see a figure walking towards them, on the water. Their reaction? It's pure, raw terror. They cry out, "It's a ghost!" Their fear is just so real, you can practically feel it coming right off the page.
And then Peter, you've got to love Peter, in this incredible, impulsive moment of faith, he calls out, "Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water." And Jesus just says one word, "Come." And Peter actually does it. He gets out of the boat and starts walking on the water. But this next part just perfectly captures the struggle we all face, right? As long as Peter's eyes are locked on Jesus, he's fine. He's doing the impossible.
But the second he looks away, the second he sees the wind and the waves, his circumstances, that's when fear takes over, and he starts to sink. His faith just falters.
Jesus' response is immediate. He reaches out, he saves him, but then he asks this really probing question, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" And you can tell it's not some angry smackdown. It's more of a gentle challenge, like, "Peter, why did you let doubt get the best of you?"
And then, the moment Jesus and Peter get back in the boat, the wind just stops. Just like that. Chaos is replaced by total calm. And for the other disciples, this is a huge moment of revelation. They realize they're not just following a great teacher or some miracle worker. Their response is just to worship him, as they finally get a glimpse of his true divine authority. Okay, so let's recap. We've seen a political execution, a massive miracle of feeding thousands, and a supernatural storm that gets calmed with a word. So, what does it all mean? Let's pull back and look at the bigger picture this whole chapter is painting for us. When you boil it all down, this entire chapter is built on these really powerful contrasts. You've got fear versus faith. Herod acts out of fear of what people think. Peter falters because he's afraid of the storm. You've got scarcity versus abundance. The disciples only see what they don't have. Jesus creates more than enough from almost nothing. You've got death versus life. One feast ends with a beheading, the other ends with thousands being fed. And ultimately, it's a showdown between earthly power, which is all about Herod and his court, and divine authority, the kind of power that can command nature itself.
So in the end, we're left with two very different leaders, two kinds of kings. One rules from a palace, surrounded by wealth, but he's totally trapped by his own fear and pride. The other is on a mountainside, he has nothing, but he commands the loyalty of thousands, and even the wind and the waves, all through compassion and faith. And that really forces us to ask a big question. What does this story suggest about the nature of true authority?